Robert Francis Prevost of the United States emerges 267th Pope of the Catholic Church. President Bola Tinubu sues for partnership with state governments in delivering critical infrastructures.
We will continue to partner with your state to deliver shared prosperity in Anambra and all Nigerians.
The Senate passes remaining tax reform bills.
These 4 bills for Mr. President to sign, which will not only bring peace to Nigeria, will bring more money to Nigeria.
Hello, glad to have you join us on the news desk at 11 on NTA News 24. We're reaching you live from Abuja. My name is Frama Panyi. And now the news in full. Robert Francis Prevost from United States has been elected the 267th Pope of the Catholic Church in a conclave that lasted 2 days. The new Pope, who is the first American pontiff in history, will be known as Leo XIV. Ekene Ndilwe reports.
Robert Francis Prevost became the first pope from the United States from the conclave, picking the papal name Leo XIV after cardinals from around the world elected him leader of the world's 1.4 billion Catholics. Tens of thousands of people packed in St. Peter's Square cheered as Prevost appeared on the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica. "Peace be with you," he told the crowds. White smoke from the Sistine Chapel had billowed into the sky on the cardinal's second day of voting to announce his election in a secret conclave, while the bells of St. Peter's Basilica and churches across Rome rang out. Crowds of people rushed towards the square to watch the balcony of the Basilica, which has been fitted out with red curtains for the first address to the world by the 267th Pope. The new pontiff, who succeeds Argentine reformer Pope Francis, was introduced in Latin with his chosen papal name. 133 cardinals from 5 continents, the largest and most international conclave ever, began voting on Wednesday afternoon. Sworn to secrecy, their only means of communicating their progress to the outside world was by sending up smoke through the chimney of the Sistine Chapel. It was unknown how many ballots it took to elect the new pope, but it followed recent history in wrapping up in less than 2 days. In Abuja, Ekene Ndulwe, NTA News.
And as he takes the helm of the world's 1.4 billion Catholics, many look up to Pope Leo XIV as a bridge between tradition and transformation. But who is Robert Prevost, Pope Leo XIV? Ekene Ndulwe has the details.
69-year-old Robert Prevost is the 267th occupant of the throne of St. Peter, and he will be known as Leo XIV. He is the first American to fill the role of Pope, although he is considered as much a cardinal from Latin America because of the many years he spent as a missionary in Peru before becoming an archbishop there. Born in Chicago in 1955 to parents of Ecuadorian and French descent, Prevost served as an altar boy and was ordained as a priest in 1982. Although he moved to Peru 3 years later, he returned regularly to the U.S. to serve as a pastor and a prior in his home city. He has Peruvian nationality and is fondly remembered as a figure who worked with marginalized communities and helped build bridges. He spent 10 years as a local parish pastor and as a teacher at a seminary in Trujillo in northwestern Peru. He is well known to cardinals because of his high-profile role as prefect of the dicastery for bishops in Latin America, which has the important task of selecting and supervising bishops. Pope Francis made him a cardinal less than 2 years ago. He will be seen as a figure who favored the continuity of Pope Francis' reforms in the Catholic Church. Prevost is believed to have shared Pope Francis' views on migrants, the poor and the environment, although he is an American and will be fully aware of the divisions within the Catholic Church. His Latin American background also represents continuity after a pope who came from Argentina. In Abuja, Ekene Ndulue, NTA News.
Away from the Vatican now, ahead of May 9 inaugural airlift of pilgrims in Imo, the National Hajj Commission of Nigeria, NACON, has announced closure of registration for the 2025 Hajj exercise. The registration ended on Friday, May 2nd, following an extension granted through an intervention by its chairman, Professor Abdullahi Saleh Usman, despite the official contract closure date of March 25. Dr. Alabi has an update.
Ahead of airlift of Nigerian pilgrims to Saudi Arabia for this year's Hajj, scheduled to commence on Friday, May 9, spokesperson of the National Hajj Commission of Nigeria, Fatima Sanda Uzara, disclosed in a statement on Wednesday that NACON closed the registration of pilgrims for the 2025 Hajj on May 2 to enable it to concentrate on the airlift of pilgrims and other logistical arrangements. She noted that any Hajj fare deposits made after May 2 will be fully refunded, as the inaugural flight will depart from Owerri, Imo State, with 315 pilgrims from Imo, Abia, and Bayelsa states boarding an Air Peace flight. The event is expected to be hosted by the Imo State Governor Hope Uzodinma and Vice President Kashim Shettima as the special guest. NACON's advance team arrived in Owerri on May 7 to oversee preparations. Meanwhile, registration for the 2025 Hajj ended with a record of 40,671 pilgrims to participate from the government quota, with 4 flights scheduled to take off simultaneously on the 9th of May for the pilgrimage. The flights include Max Air from Bauchi, 2 Flying House flights, one from Kebbi and the other Osun through Lagos Departure Center, and a 4th flight from Niger, totaling 2,528 pilgrims are expected to arrive Medina on the first day. At the time of this report, more than 300,000 pilgrims from around the world, according to Saudi General Directorate of Passports, have arrived in Saudi Arabia to perform the annual Hajj rituals, including a group of European Muslims who reached Mecca after traveling on horseback to honor traditional pilgrimage routes. In Abuja, Tokbe Alabi, NTA News.
And President Bola Tinubu has promised to intensify partnership with state governments in delivering shared prosperity to the people of Nigeria, as building critical infrastructures across the country remains the determination of his government. The president said this as he addressed people at Anambra at the Alex Ekweme Square in Awka. State House correspondent Musbawat Anwahab reports that the president inaugurated some legacy projects executed by Governor Chukwuma Soludo of Anambra.
Third visit of President Tinubu to the southeast since assumption of office. It was a unified moment, with governors from across the geopolitical zones joining the chief host to receive the president.
God of honor!
The commander-in-chief was also received by a detachment of the Nigerian military. Warm atmosphere in Awka. The strategic 50-year developmental plan of Anambra is beginning to come into fruition, with some legacy projects of Governor Soludo providing solution to the infrastructural need of the state. The former Secretary General of the Commonwealth, Chief Emeka Anyoko himself, welcomed the president at the Institute of International Studies and Diplomacy, built in Unizik and named after him by the state government. The president also inaugurated the Solution Fund City and a new government house started and completed under the first term of the governor. And then, President Tinubu returned to the Alex Ekweme Square, where he came to seek for support ahead of the 2023 presidential election, this time as the sitting president. The president commended the governor's efforts in addressing insecurity and on other projects which he described as solid foundation for the growth of the state.
With our progressive ideological alliance, we will continue to partner with your state to deliver shared prosperity in Anambra and all Nigerians.
Highlighting various programs and policies of his administration and reforms which he said are already building investors' confidence, President Tinubu assures the people of Anambra of more federal government's interventions, including rectification of the rail line and the National Gas Master Plan that for now bypass the state.
I'm standing before you that this already designed a Ministry of Transportation is aware to include the connection in the master plan, and it will see attention. Our diversity must lead to prosperity. We must work together.
Thank you for all the hard work you put in to move Anambra and Nigeria forward. We know the state of the Nigerian economy with all its unsustainable dysfunctionalities when you assumed office. You had the courage to tame the Atlantic Ocean in Lagos, and now you have the courage. You are courageously and systematically getting the economy to work again. There is still a lot of work to do, we know, but there is no doubt that in less than 2 years, important building blocks are already falling into place.
Another feather to the cap of the president, as the Council of Traditional Rulers, Anambra State, conferred on him the title of Dike Simba, translating to a warrior from another origin. The president is back in Abuja. In Abuja, Musbah Al Wahab, NT News.
Meanwhile, the federal government has launched the National Action Plan on Ending Violence Against Children in Nigeria, with a call for stiff enforcement of the Child Right Act and other child protection laws that guarantee the safety, dignity and future of Nigerian children. President Bola Tinubu, represented by Vice President Kashim Shettima, stated this at the first regional meeting of the Africa Pathfinder countries of the Global Alliance on Ending Violence Against Children at the Presidential Villa. State House correspondent Abdurrahman Jubrila reports.
On behalf of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu GCFR, to unveil this National Action Plan on Protection Against Child Violence.
A commitment to establishing a dedicated child protection and development agency to ensure coherent coordination of all issues relating to the Nigerian child. President Tinubu assured that relevant government institutions, including the Ministry of Women Affairs, are armed with the required training and resources to spearhead the protection of the Nigerian child.
We are strengthening existing institutions and laws and launching national campaigns to promote awareness and drive behavioral change. We are also building institutional frameworks that guarantee children's issues are never again consigned to the periphery of policy making. These issues will now take center stage in interministerial collaboration, in policy innovation, and in budgetary priorities, through dedicated grant mechanisms that support this vision. This is what it means to be a pathfinder.
Underlining the importance of the first regional meeting of the Africa's Pathfinder countries under the Global Alliance on Ending Violence Against Children, Vice President Kashim Shettima reaffirms Nigeria's commitment to significantly accelerate efforts ensuring child protection and well-being are prioritized on the national agenda.
We must invest in prevention. Prevention is not only more humane, it is more cost-effective. Parenting programs, school-based safety campaigns, community sensitization, and empowering our children as agents of change must be scaled up.
National policy on safety, security, and violence-free schools. We also have a safe school declaration, but notwithstanding, upon seeing the rising crisis of violence in school, the ministry recently launched the national policy on anti-bullying in Nigerian school with its implementation guideline. This was done on Monday, 5th of May, 2025.
The National Homegrown School Feeding Program, so that we can reach out to many children, improve their nutrition, school enrollment, and also completion rate. And this, we believe, will significantly improve the prosperity and rights of Nigerian children.
I just want to finish telling that Africa, my God, it's the youngest continent in the world, and children have to be seen as an asset to invest on and not as a problem to resolve.
Et des enfants déplacés internes qui sont devenus des...
The heads of delegation of the regional meeting from Zimbabwe, Cote d'Ivoire, Sierra Leone and Burkina Faso stated the recommitment of their various countries to the Global Alliance to Ending Violence Against Children, as declared in November 2024. They presented progress reports from their respective countries, commending Nigeria, urging all stakeholders to be intentional about ending violence against children to actualize the objectives. From the State House, Abraham Jibrila, NTA News.
You're watching the news at 11 on NTA News 24. More reports will come your way after this break.
I therefore call on my colleagues, or media professionals and editors, to be discerning in their reportage. We must deny these groups the undue publicity they crave. We must take them off the front pages and accurately report them as the criminals that they are, without glorifying their acts or giving credence to their false narratives. These, of course, are not freedom fighters. They are murderers, kidnappers, and destroyers, and they must be presented as such.
This is NTA News 24.
Welcome back. Now, the Senate has passed the tax reform bills, concluding clause-by-clause consideration, which began Wednesday, paving the way for a new tax regime in Nigeria that is streamlined for economic prosperity. National Assembly correspondent Lami Ali reports that the 4 tax reform bills will be transmitted for assent of President Tinubu after harmonization with the House of Representatives.
Those in support say aye.
Lawmakers in the Red Chamber used 2 days for clause-by-clause scrutiny of the 4 tax bills, which are the Joint Revenue Board Establishments Bill, the Nigeria Revenue Service Establishments Bill, the Nigeria Tax Administration Bill, and the Nigeria Tax Bill. The executive bills are aligned to the Finance Act, with rejigged VAT sharing formula and additional beneficiaries of development levy to include other key sectors, among others.
What we did in these bills, we have created the Nigerian Revenue Services with an executive vice chairman and a non-executive chairman. And we said the Nigerian Revenue Service will need not less than 6 executive directors.
These 4 bills for Mr. President to sign, which will not only bring peace to Nigeria, will bring more money to Nigeria and development, and then leave the bills as legacies for future generations, where government only for a period, others will come after us.
We remain focused. Having passed the tax reforms, we are moving on to work on electoral reforms. And we are moving on as well to work on constitutional reforms. We are very clear as to our mandate and our agenda.
In the meantime, President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, at the commencement of plenary, read communications from President Tinubu requesting confirmation of chairmen and board members for the Southwest, South-South and North Central Regional Development Commissions. Senate also held a valedictory session in honor of the late elder statesman, Chief Edwin Clark.
As a senator of the Federal Republic, he did all he could for his people. He stood for his people. He stood for Nigeria.
We can't replace the voice of Edwin Clark. But what we can learn is that never should any one of us feel so comfortable in a system as to be unable to speak truth, even in power.
Chief Edwin Clark spoke for us more than any other person. He was the voice of the minorities.
By the great soul of Edwin Clark, who gave his all in the service of the Niger Delta people, the minorities of Nigeria, the Nigeria as a nation, rest in perfect peace.
From the National Assembly, Lami Ali, NTA News.
And still from the National Assembly, the House of Representatives has urged the federal government to establish more compressed natural gas CNG conversion centers across the country. This resolution of the House followed the adoption of a motion by Deputy Minority Leader Aliyu Madaki. National Assembly correspondent Mitaire Ikpen reports.
Lawmakers at plenary acknowledged the Presidential Compressed Natural Gas Initiative as a panacea to the removal of fuel subsidy about 2 years ago. They believe the conversion of vehicles to CNG will bring down the cost of living for Nigerians, hence the need for equitable distribution of the CNG conversion kits and centers across the geopolitical zones of the country.
Only Kaduna in Northwest is benefiting from the presidential initiative, while no state in the Northeast is listed as a beneficiary.
Look at the cities that were exempted, talk less of even the corridors. Look at the corridor of Lokoja, Abuja, Kano. Why are the CNG platforms?
It's a federal government project, and it's very important that it spreads across board without any segregation or marginalization.
This motion will be referred to a committee to be constituted in due course.
Another resolution sought the establishment of more permanent NYSC orientation camps.
Disturbed by the current dilapidated state of permanent orientation camps in the country, which is causing dissatisfaction due to inadequate facilities, urge the Federal Ministry of Youth, in collaboration with other stakeholders, to work out modalities to achieve the construction and expansion of NYSC orientation camps.
5 bills were passed at Thursday's plenary, including a bill seeking establishment of a National Science, Technology, Innovation and Research Council to set national priorities. Another bill to amend the National Primary Education Commission Act passed second reading.
The bill is set to correct the foundational gap by ensuring that the language of instruction in the first 3 years of primary school is the child's mother language tongue, or the dominant local language of the community.
Meanwhile, the trend of defections continues in the House as 3 lawmakers from Katsina State formally announced their resignation from the People's Democratic Party to join the governing All Progressives Congress, citing internal party crisis in the PDP as reasons for cross-carpeting. Their defection was witnessed by Katsina State Governor Diko Umar Rada, who was in the hallowed chamber to show solidarity. From the National Assembly, Mitaire Ikpen, NTA News.
And now, as part of efforts of the Federal Road Safety Corps to mitigate road traffic crashes in the country, it has embraced consulting some major stakeholders, especially retired personnel, to reduce the ugly trend. Of recent is the visit of the Lagos State Zonal Command to retired Deputy Corps Marshal Training, BC Kazim, to solicit his support and expertise towards ensuring highway sanity, especially in Lagos State. The retired Deputy Corps Marshal Training urged the team not to relent in its efforts while tasking members to remain resilient in their service to the nation. And that concludes the news at 11 on NTA News 24. Thank you for your time. I am Frama Panyi. Do have a good night.